President Barack Obama addressed the UN, calling for potential allies in the U.S.-led coalition to fight ISIS in Syria and Iraq, and also calling for moderate Muslims in Muslim countries to denounce and reject ISIS and their ideology and especially their tactics. We've got a couple of excerpts from his speech. Here's the first.
This group has terrorized all who they come across in Iraq and Syria. Mothers, sisters, daughters have been subjected to rape as a weapon of war. Innocent children have been gunned down. Bodies have been dumped in mass graves. Religious minorities have been starved to death. In the most horrific crimes imaginable, innocent human beings have been beheaded with videos of the atrocity distributed to shock the conscience of the world. No God condones this terror. No grievance justifies these actions. There can be no reasoning, no negotiation with this brand of evil. The only language understood by killers like this is the language of force. So the United States of America will work with a broad coalition to dismantle this network of death.
So that speech had the slow pacing and bored tone of an Obama speech, but the words could have come out of George W. Bush's mouth 10 years ago.
I especially when he started talking about there's no negotiating with them. Look, I agree that there's no negotiating with ISIS, but that's a typical phrase that you would hear from neocons, right?
Yeah.
Or specifically the right wing. So it's just fascinating to hear him use that particular language. Now, I don't agree with our strategy, and part of the reason why I don't agree with the strategy is because it's already proven to increase the power of ISIS through more recruits. So now they have increased recruitment. I think after the first day of airstrikes, they got about 1,300 new recruits. And the reason why is because, I mean, look at all of our foreign policy when it comes to the Middle East. I mean, think about all the number of innocent civilians that died in Iraq. I mean, people are upset. Our aggression has led to hostility toward the United States, so they're looking for a group to join to kind of feel better about it. You know what I mean? To basically fight back against U.S. aggression. Fighting aggression with aggression is not going to solve this problem.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
So he started off that part of the speech by listing some of the atrocities. I mean, he could have gone on for quite a while in terms of what ISIS has done. I know Jimmy's probably logging in his mind all of the different abuses that we have levied as the U.S. against those in Iraq in particular in our last war. Now, so far, in terms of the strikes that we've done now for 2 days in Syria, there have been some reports of civilian deaths, but probably less than I think most would have expected. I mean, any civilian death is a tragedy. But the idea that if we continue this, as the generals have been saying over the past 2 days, that the strikes could go on for years, I mean, that civilian death toll is only going to continue to go up. ISIS has taken over, we showed you the map yesterday, a number of different cities throughout North and East Syria, filled with civilians. I mean, they have just integrated into a place surrounded by people. The idea that we're not going to kill many, many civilians over the course of this campaign is just, it's hard to fathom.
Well, I'm sure that our policy will lead to moderate Muslims denouncing, ISIS, because our aggression that kills innocent civilians abroad will be understanding, or will be understood by them, right? Yeah. They're just collateral damage. Remember, that's the type of wording we use when it comes to drone strikes and when it comes to civilian deaths abroad. Collateral damage. Yeah. I mean, this is not one isolated incident. This is a symptom of a much larger problem that we have when it comes to our aggression and our foreign policy.
Yeah.
So again, the chief war propagandist needs to scare the shit out of us about this enemy that's worse than any enemy we've ever seen before, that only responds to force. That's our enemy. This is a new kind of enemy that's so evil that they chop people's heads off. And so those are the type of people that only respond to force. Unfortunately, Saudi Arabia beheaded 31 people in August already. So what the president just said there was bullshit. Complete bullshit. We're not afraid of ISIS. Why we're bombing, I can't really tell you for sure, but I do know that General Smedley Butler told us that war is a racket. And a racket is something that it is opposite of what it appears to the majority of people, and only a handful of people know what's actually going on. But one thing we know for sure is happening, that a very small number of people are getting filthy rich off this new war. Exactly. That is for sure happening. So all this stuff about ISIS is worse than any other people, and they don't want to educate their women. They use rape as a thing, even though he's admitted to the United States tortured some folks. We still have Guantanamo. We're still holding people indefinitely. We're still torturing people. We tortured our own soldier, Private Manning. We tortured people to get them to lie about our illegal invasion, which caused this very problem, was caused by our use of force. So when he says ISIS is the only people that understand force, I guess since 9/11, we've bombed 7 different Muslim countries. But apparently ISIS is the only one that's going to understand force. We just like using it against everybody, apparently. So again, more bullshit from this bought and paid for corporate tool who he's the Nobel Peace Prize winner who can't wait to bomb again.
Yeah. Okay, so far Obama has not won over Jimmy Dore. Let's roll the second clip and see if he finds this more persuasive.
Today I ask the world to join in this effort. Those who have joined ISIL should leave the battlefield while they can. Those who continue to fight for a hateful cause will find they are increasingly alone. We will neither tolerate terrorist safe havens nor act as an occupying power. We will take action against threats to our security and our allies while building an architecture of counterterrorism cooperation.
Convinced?
Oh, so he got me there. Look, that's right. That makes a lot of sense.
I mean, look, as we've said, none of us here understand what long-term the strategy is supposed to be, which I think makes sense because it seems pretty obvious that Obama and the generals don't understand the strategy. I feel like they were pushed into this by mainly the right wing, but some Democrats as well, who wanted there to be sort of a concrete plan. They kept criticizing him for not having a concrete plan. Early on, he seemed like he was trying to be thoughtful. He was trying to figure out what to do to fight ISIS. But we kept pushing them, not us personally, but many in the US and the media pushed him to come up with a plan. So now we're bombing, Khorasan, and we're bombing ISIS in Syria. But at the same time, we seem to be immediately helping out Assad because we're taking out at least some of his enemies in that region. The Syrians that we're talking about arming and training, like the Free Syrian Army, they seem hardly better in most cases. I mean, they have kidnapped journalists in that country. Khorasan, we didn't even know about a week ago. God knows what other al-Qaeda-related terrorist organizations are currently operating in Syria, and yet we're flying these missions. We don't know. Like there could be a number of hornets' nests that we're actively going to kick up, and we have no clue who they are. The U.S. government, but especially the media.
But we just spent. So now we're going to spend a year. Training moderate Muslims inside. Right now, according to our government, Al-Qaeda are moderate Muslims because ISIS is the radical, right? In fact, Al-Qaeda and ISIS are kind of competing against each other. So in a sense, we're on the side now of Assad, who we wanted to bomb last year. For sure, we had to bomb him. If you care about morality,
he would have only understood force.
He only would understand force, right? Turns out we didn't bomb him, but now we're going to go back and bomb his enemy, which is also turns out to be Al-Qaeda's enemy. So now we're working with the guy we wanted to bomb last year, the Al-Qaeda, which are our sworn enemies forever, and no one knows what the hell we're doing over there. Nobody ever asks people have asked what this is going to cost. It gets completely dismissed, and then they move on to the next story. I was watching Ronan Farrow today. Instead of spending the whole hour on what this is going to cost, he had on generals, and they're showing the maps and all the bullshit about Khorasan and ISIS, and it's all bullshit. All right. What do you think? Do you really think we're going to fix a problem by bombing, by dropping more bombs? Well, Barack Obama does that thing about this is, the ISIS they don't want education for their women. They want to rape their women. So are we dropping pro-education bombs? Hey, pull me up some of those pro-women bombs. Can we drop those over? Where do you get those at? Where are the women libs bombs? Does Code Pink have any bombs that help for peace? Can we bomb for peace? The ridiculousness of this is as ridiculous as it was ever since we started doing this war for profit when we invented war. And it's the same stuff. It's sad to see that Barack Obama is a warmonger.
Jimmy, you have to understand, we have a long history of arming groups throughout the world, and it's always really worked in our favor. So we have nothing to worry about. We have nothing to worry about.
Well, Anna, we spent $25 billion over 7 years training and arming the Iraqis forces. As soon as 700 ISIS guys showed up, they dropped their uniforms and walked away. So now we think we're going to be able to take other people, we don't even know who the hell they are, spend a year training them, and it's going to work.
What I want to know more than the cost, what's more important to me, is exactly how is ISIS an imminent threat to the United States, right?
No one's ever said.
They keep implying it, right? And so why is it that Obama thought it would be a good idea to go do these airstrikes with no congressional authorization, right? So tell me, so are you defending the United States States? Is this really about national security? It doesn't seem like it is, because if it is about national security, tell us exactly why they're a threat. And this is a symptom of what we started in 2003, a preemptive war where the government lied to us about weapons of mass destruction. Innocent civilians died as a result of that extremely long war, and that's what happens. It leads to aggression toward the U.S. So you can't expand on Bush-era policies and expect for terrorism to go away. This counterterrorism effort is not going to work.
I don't know what the solution is, right?
Right.
I don't know that we have to come up with a solution, but I certainly know what isn't the solution.
Exactly.
And what isn't the solution is to keep dropping bombs in the Middle East on Muslims in the hope that they'll finally get sick of us bombing them and will quit hating us. Again, the question is, how many more Muslims do we have to kill before they stop wanting to kill us?
Yeah. Tweet us your guesses, I guess. Yeah, and look, so you were talking about them needing to make the case about an imminent threat. And as we said yesterday, they sort of tried to do that with Khorasan, the Phantom Menace we'd never heard about before, which ironically was dangerous specifically because they were coming up with incredibly advanced IEDs, advanced bombs, because they apparently think that we in America only understand force. So they wanted to use the bombs on us. We have then bombed them to hell, apparently possibly even killed their leader, Muhsin al-Fadli. This is coming from Susan Rice, who says, "We can't confirm that at this stage, but we've seen reports on social media to that effect. We will continue to look for signs as to whether or not that's in fact the case. And if that is the case, if we have actually killed them, we've taken out the 50 members of Khorasan operating west of Aleppo in Syria, and that's the only way that you've sort of made the case about anyone who's an imminent threat, then it sounds like mission accomplished, and we can perhaps stop bombing them." I don't think that that's probably going to be our strategy going forward.